The Hall of Stars was the largest room Jinho Park had ever seen. It floated in the middle of a space station that was bigger than some moons. The walls were made of something that looked like black glass. And through them, he could see 1,000 distant stars shining like tiny candles in the darkness. He stood alone in the center of the great hall. Around him, rising up in circles like seats in a stadium, sat the representatives of 12 alien species. Some of them looked almost human. Others were so strange that Jinho's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. There was a creature made entirely of silver light, contained inside a floating geometric shape. There was a being that looked like a cloud of purple gas, with glowing eyes. There was something that resembled a giant insect with too many legs. These were the rulers of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had governed known space for 40,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars die and new ones be born. And now, for the first time in their long history, they were meeting with humans. Jinho tried to keep his hands from shaking. He was the first human ambassador to ever stand in this hall. Behind him, somewhere far away, 8 billion people were waiting to hear what would happen next. High Speaker Velos rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and 6 arms. He had no eyes that Jinho could see, but somehow Jinho knew the alien was looking directly at him. When Velos spoke, a small device translated his words into English. "You are the representative of the species called human," Velos said. It was not a question. "I am," Jinho replied. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "And your world? You call it Earth, yes?" Velos made a gesture with 2 of his arms. "A young name. A simple name. A name given by children who did not know better." Jinho felt a flash of anger, but pushed it down. He had been trained for this. He knew that aliens might not understand human ways, just as humans did not understand theirs. "It is the only name we have ever known," he said carefully. "That is precisely the problem." The voice came from the creature of light, the one called Elder Consul Mirith. Its geometric shell pulsed with colors as it spoke. Every world in the galaxy has an origin name, a true name. The name given by the architects before life began. Out. Jinho had heard of the architects, ancient beings who had existed millions of years ago. They had seeded life across the galaxy before vanishing without a trace. No one knew who they really were or where they had gone. "I do not know this origin name," Jinho admitted. "We have no records of it." A murmur spread through the assembly. Jinho could not understand the sounds the aliens made, but he could feel their emotions. Fear, confusion, and something else. Something that felt almost like dread. "You must find it," Velos said. "You have 1 rotation, 1 cycle of this station. Find the origin name of your world and return to us. Until then, your species will not be granted any standing in this council." The session ended without ceremony. Jinho was escorted back to the human ship by silent guards, who would not answer his questions. The Horizon's Edge was waiting for him in the docking bay. It was the finest ship humanity had ever built, but compared to the alien vessels around it, it looked like a toy. Commander Sujin Yoon met him at the airlock. "That was fast," she said. Her face was calm, but Jinho could see the worry in her eyes. "What happened?" "They want to know the true name of Earth," Jinho said. "Some kind of ancient name from before humans existed. They gave us 1 day to find it," Sujin frowned. "And if we cannot find it, they did not say. But I do not think it will be good." They walked together to the war room, where the rest of the senior crew was waiting. Lieutenant Haejin Lee, the science officer, was already working at a console. Dr. Yuna Kong, the xenarchaeologist, sat nearby with a tablet full of notes. Chief Analyst Do-Yan Beek and Tactical Officer Minho Ru stood by the main display screen. "We watched the whole thing," Hajan said. "I started searching as soon as they asked the question." "Did you find anything?" Sujin asked. Haejin's face was pale. He looked like a man who had seen something he wished he had not seen. "Maybe I do not know." "Commander, this might be nothing. Or it might be everything." He pulled up an image on the main screen. It was a star map, old and damaged. Parts of it were missing or corrupted, but in the center, one star was clearly marked. It was circled many times in a script that looked like nothing Jinho had ever seen. This map came from a dead world called Threshold, Heijin explained. It is older than the Council. Older than any species we know. We think it was made by the architects themselves. And that star? Sujin pointed at the marked location. That is Sol, our sun. Earth's sun. The room went quiet. There is a word next to it, Heijin continued. It appears 17 times on this map alone. Always connected to Sol, always marked in red. He zoomed in on the image. A single word filled the screen. The script was alien and strange, but below it, Heijin had added a translation, Kelleron. What does it mean? Gino asked. Unikong spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. I have seen this word before, in tombs, in ruins. In archives that the Council ordered, sealed, and forgotten. It took me 3 years to find a partial translation. She looked at each of them in turn. Kelleron. It means the grave of the undying, or maybe the prison of sleeping gods. The translation is not perfect, but the meaning is clear. Sujin stared at the screen. Her hands gripped the edge of the console. That is our home? That is what they called Earth. That is what the architects called it, Yuna said. And based on how the Council reacted today, I think they already knew. They just wanted to see if we knew too, and Ho felt cold. The stars outside the window suddenly seemed darker than before. One day, he said quietly, we have 1 day to figure out what this means. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrible question began to form. If Earth was the grave of gods, then what did that make the creatures who had evolved there? What did that make humans? The crew of the Horizon's Edge did not sleep that night. Every computer on the ship was running at full power. Every database was being searched. Every piece of information humanity had ever collected about the Rocketechs was being studied again and again. Unikong had locked herself in her lab with a pot of coffee and 17 ancient files. Most of them were copies of copies, records stolen from alien ruins over decades of careful exploration. The Council did not know that humans had been collecting these secrets. They did not know that Earth's explorers had found things that were supposed to stay hidden forever. In the war room, Cajun Lee was trying to decode the script from the star map. It was not going well. The architect language was not like any language humans had ever seen. It did not follow normal rules. Sometimes the same symbol meant different things. Sometimes meaning changed based on colors that human eyes could barely see. This is impossible, Heijin muttered. He rubbed his tired eyes. We need years to understand this. We have hours. Commander Sujin stood by the window, watching the Council station rotate slowly in the darkness. She had not said much since the meeting ended. Her mind was full of questions that had no answers. Why do they care so much? She asked quietly. It is just a name. An old name that no one remembers. Why does it frighten them? Do-Yeon Beek looked up from his console. The chief analyst had been running the word Kelleron through every linguistic program they had. Most of them had failed. But one had given him something. I think I know, he said. Or at least, I have a theory. Everyone turned to look at him. Names have power, Do-Yeon explained. Not in a magical way. In a political way? A historical way. Think about it. If someone told you that your city was built on the grave of a great king, you would feel different about that city. You would treat it differently. Others would treat it differently too. So the Council is afraid of how we might be treated, Sujin asked. Maybe, or maybe they are afraid of what the name means about us. Do-Yeon pulled up his research. Look at this. I found fragments of the Kelleran references in 12 different ancient sources. They all say similar things. Kelleran was not just a grave, it was a prison. A place where dangerous things were locked away. Minho Ryu, who had been quietly checking the ship's weapon systems, finally spoke. What kind of dangerous things? The architects themselves. The room went silent. At that moment, the door opened and Yuna walked in. She looked exhausted. Her hair was messy, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But there was something else in her expression, something that looked almost like wonder. "I found it," she said. "I found the truth about Kelleron." She connected her tablet to the main screen. Images began to appear. Ancient drawings, star maps, fragments of text in that strange architect's script. The architects were not just creators, Una began. They were something more, something that the galaxy has never seen before or since. They had power that we cannot imagine. They could build stars. They could create life with a thought. They could bend the rules of reality itself. "They sound like gods," Jinho said softly. That is exactly what they were. Or at least, that is what they became. And that was the problem. Una changed the image. A dark planet appeared on the screen. It looked familiar somehow. Blue and green and white. When an architect grew too powerful, they became dangerous. Not evil. Just too big. Too strong. Their very existence began to damage the fabric of space and time. They could not control themselves anymore. What did they do? Sujin asked. They built Kelleron. Una pointed at the planet on the screen. A world designed to contain them, to drain their power, to slowly break them down until nothing remained. They went there to die. The image changed again. This time it showed data, numbers and charts and graphs. The architects engineered Kelleran to be the most hostile world in the galaxy. The radiation, the temperature shifts, the diseases, the predators. Everything on that planet was designed to kill, designed to destroy anything with power. Heijin was staring at the screen with wide eyes. "Earth," he whispered. "You are talking about Earth?" "Yes," Una nodded slowly. "Our home. The blue planet. The pale blue dot. It is Kelleron. It was designed to be a death world, a graveyard for gods." The implications hit everyone at the same time. Sujin was the first to speak. "But we survived there. We did not just survive. We evolved. We built cities. We created technology. We thrived." "Exactly." Una's voice was quiet now. "The architects went to Kelleron to die. They poured their essence into the planet itself, into the water, into the soil, into every living thing. And over millions of years, that essence became part of the life that grew there." She looked at each crew member in turn. "We are not just survivors of a death world. We are what grows from the corpse of gods. Their power did not kill us. It became part of us. It made us what we are." Doyen leaned back in his chair. His face was pale. "That is why humans are different. Why we heal faster than other species. Why we can eat things that would kill anyone else. Why we keep surviving things that should destroy us." "Yes," Una nodded. "And that is why the Council is afraid. They know what Kelleron was. They know nothing should have survived there. And now, they have to face the fact that something did survive. Something that carries the essence of the architects inside its very cells." His hands were trembling, but his voice was steady. "We have to tell them. We have to go back to the Council and explain." "Explain what?" Minho asked. "That we are the children of dead gods? That we never knew. They will not believe us. Maybe not. But we cannot hide this. Whatever we are, whatever we might become, we need to face it honestly." Sujin finally turned away from the window. There was something new in her eyes. Not fear, not confusion. Something that looked almost like pride. "He is right. We go back. We tell them what we found. And then we see what happens." She looked at the screen, at the image of Earth floating in space. "We have spent our whole history wondering why we survived when so many things tried to kill us. Now we know. And I think it is time the rest of the galaxy knew too." Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine. Cold and distant and ancient. But somehow, they did not seem quite so intimidating anymore. After all, if humanity could survive the grave of gods, what was there left to fear? The Hall of Stars was even more crowded than before. Word had spread across the station that something important was about to happen. Species that had not attended a council meeting in centuries had sent representatives. Military officers stood along the walls. Intelligence agents watched from hidden corners. Every broadcast channel in the galaxy was recording. Jinho Park walked to the center of the obsidian floor. This time, he was not alone. A hologram of Dr. Unikong floated beside him, projected from the horizon's edge. Together, they faced the council. High Speaker Velos raised his 6 arms for silence. The murmuring stopped immediately. Human Ambassador, you have returned. Do you bring us the answer we requested? Ginho nodded. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was calm. We found it. The origin name of our world. The true name given by the architects before life began. The entire hall seemed to lean forward. Thousands of alien eyes focused on the small human standing at the center of everything. Speak it, Velos commanded. His translator hummed. His silver skin seemed to shimmer with nervous energy. Ginho took a deep breath. He looked at Yuna's hologram. She gave him a small nod. Our world was called Kelleron. For one heartbeat, there was complete silence. Then chaos erupted. Elder Consul Mirith's light flickered wildly, shifting through colors that had no names. The geometric shell that contained it began to spin. Velos staggered backward, all 6 arms reaching out as if trying to push the word away. Several delegates simply fled, their bodies moving faster than Jinho had thought possible. Alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed along the walls. Somewhere deep in the station, Jinho could hear the heavy thud of blast doors closing. Ah, is a lie. The shout came from a massive reptilian creature near the front. Admiral Turek of the Yavari military caste was on his feet, his scales flashing with anger. Kelleron was destroyed. The architects sealed it. Nothing could have survived. And yet we are here, Yuna said calmly. Her hologram did not flicker. Her voice did not shake. 8 billion of us. Living, breathing, we evolved on the world you believed was the graveyard of gods. Possible. Torek roared. The council surveyed that sector 10,000 years ago. There was nothing there. Only a dead rock orbiting a yellow star. Your survey was wrong. Yuna pulled up data on her hologram display. Star charts. Atmospheric readings. Biological samples. This is Earth. This is Kelleron. The same world. We have genetic evidence. Archaeological evidence. The signature of architects' technology is everywhere on our planet. In our fossils. In our oldest rocks. In our own bodies. The hall slowly quieted as aliens stared at the evidence. Many of them had spent their entire lives studying the architects. They knew what to look for, and they could see that Yuna was telling the truth. Velos finally spoke. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. You do not understand what you are saying. You do not understand what Kelleron was. Then tell us, Ginho said. Tell us the truth that you have been hiding. Velos looked around at the other council members. Some nodded. Some turned away. But no one objected. Kelleron was created for one purpose, Velos began. To be a tomb. But not for ordinary beings. For the architects themselves. He walked slowly toward the center of the hall, stopping just a few meters from Jinho. You must understand. The architects were not just powerful. They were power itself. When they created life, they put pieces of themselves into it. When they built stars, they used their own essence as fuel. They were everything the galaxy is today. What happened to them? Ginho asked. They grew too strong. Their power became uncontrollable. They began to damage reality simply by existing. So they made a choice. A terrible choice. Velos's 6 arms hung limp at his sides. They built Kelleron, a world that would kill anything with their essence. A world filled with poison and fire and death. They went there to die so that the rest of the universe could live. Mirith's light pulsed. The Elder Consul spoke for the first time since the revelation. The radiation on Kelleron was designed to tear apart architect essence. The predators were engineered to hunt anything that glowed with power. The diseases were created to attack cells that carried even a trace of the Creator's energy. Nothing should have survived. Nothing could have survived, but something did, Yuna said quietly. We did. Velos looked at her. For the first time, Ginho saw something in the alien that he recognized. Fear. Pure, deep, ancient fear. You did not just survive, Velos said. You evolved. The essence that was meant to be destroyed became part of you. The power that was meant to fade away was absorbed into your very cells. You are not the descendants of architect creations. You are the descendants of the architects themselves. The words hung in the air like thunder. Admiral Torik's scales had stopped flashing. He was staring at Jinho with an expression that might have been horror, might have been wonder. That is why you are the way you are, Torik said slowly. That is why you heal wounds that would kill our soldiers. That is why you eat poisons like they were food. That is why you survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have ended your species 100 times over. We never knew, Jinho said. We just thought we were lucky. Lucky? Mirith's light flickered. You are not lucky. You are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced. You carry the essence of gods in your blood. And you have been evolving, growing stronger for millions of years. We have no idea what you might become. Yuna stepped forward. Her hologram flickered slightly, but her voice was steady. We did not ask for this. We did not choose it. But we are what we are. Children of Kelleron. Born from the grave of the undying, she looked at the council, at the thousands of aliens who were watching with fear and confusion. The question now is simple. What do you want to do about it? Because we are not going anywhere. We survived the death world your gods created to kill everything. Do you really think you can do better? The hall was silent. Ginho felt something shift in the room. The fear was still there, but now there is something else too, something that felt almost like respect. Velos straightened his silver body. His 6 arms moved in a gesture that Ginho did not recognize. We will need time, the High Speaker said. Time to discuss. Time to decide. But know this, human. Whatever we choose, it will not be simple. You have changed everything. The moment that name was spoken, the galaxy became a different place. Jinho nodded slowly. I understand. Take the time you need. We will be waiting. He turned and walked out of the hall. Behind him, could hear the chaos beginning again. Arguments, accusations, demands for action. But Ginho kept walking. Whatever came next, humanity would face it the same way they had always faced everything else. Together, and without fear. News of humanity's origin spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every species in known space had heard the story. The children of Kelleron, the survivors of the death world, the creatures who carried godessence in their blood. Reactions were not kind. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Minho-Ru was monitoring communications from across the sector. His face grew darker with every report. The Javarai have declared us an existential threat, he announced. They are calling for immediate military action. Commander Sujin asked. Their entire Third Fleet, 300 warships. They are already moving toward Council space. Who else? Minho scrolled through his data. The Tarim Collective has called for quarantine. They want to isolate our solar system permanently. The Vorith Syndicate is demanding genetic samples for study. The Crystalline Accord has classified us as a contamination risk. Any support at all? A few smaller species. The Pale Wanderers sent a message of curiosity. The Deep Thinkers want to meet with our scientists. But they are minor powers. They cannot protect us. Sujin stood at the center of the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, the crew worked in tense silence. Everyone knew that the next few hours would decide the future of their species. Where is Jinho? She asked, still on the station. He refused to leave until the council makes a decision. Sujin nodded. She understood. Someone had to stay there to represent humanity, even when everything seemed hopeless. That was what ambassadors did. In her lab, Dr. Unikong was working frantically. She had spread every piece of architect data across her tables and screens. Fragments of technology, pieces of ancient code, medical formulas that no living species had ever understood. Heijin Li found her there, surrounded by holographic displays. You should rest, he said quietly. I cannot. Not now. Yuna pointed at one of her screens. Look at this. The architects did not just die on Kelleron. They left things behind. Technology, knowledge, gifts. Gifts for who? For whoever survived? Yuna's eyes were bright with excitement and exhaustion. Do you understand what this means? They knew someone might evolve there. They wanted that someone to find what they left behind. Heijin looked at the data. It was beyond his understanding, but he could see patterns. Medical formulas, engineering blueprints, star maps showing locations that no one had ever explored. This could change everything, he said softly. That is what I'm hoping. On the council station, Jinho Park sat alone in a waiting room. The walls were bare. The chairs were designed for species with very different bodies than his. He felt small and strange and completely out of place, but he did not leave. Hours passed. Occasionally, an alien would walk by and stare at him. Some looked frightened. Others looked curious. A few looked angry. Jinho met each gaze calmly and waited. Finally, the door opened. High-speaker Velos entered, followed by 2 guards. The council is divided, Velos said without greeting. Half want to destroy your species, half want to study you. A few want to worship you. We cannot reach an agreement, and what do you want? Jinho asked. Velos was silent for a long moment. His silver skin shifted through colors that Jinho could not read. I do not know, the high speaker admitted. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve and die. But I have never seen anything like your kind. He sat down in one of the strange chairs. It was the first time Jinho had seen a council member sit in his presence. You terrify me, Velos said quietly. Everything about you terrifies me. Your bodies, your minds, your stubborn refusal to die. You are what happens when death itself fails to do its job. We did not choose to be this way. No, that makes it worse. Velos's 6 arms made a gesture of helplessness. If you had chosen this power, we could hate you. We could fight you. But you are innocent. You are children who stumbled into an inheritance you do not understand. Then help us understand, Jinho said. Instead of trying to destroy us, help us learn what we are, what we can be. Velos looked at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Back on the horizon's edge, Ensign Naricho was the first to spot the approaching ships. Commander, Javori fleet on sensors. They will reach us in 4 hours. Sujin moved to the tactical display. 300 warships arranged in attack formation. Enough firepower to crack planets. And they were heading straight for the council station. They are not waiting for a decision, Minho said grimly. They have decided on their own. Can we fight them? We have 1 ship. They have 300. What do you think? Sujin stared at the display. Her mind raced through options, but there were no good ones. Fight and die. Run and abandon Jinho. Surrender and trust the mercy of species who saw them as monsters. There has to be another way, she muttered. Commander. Yuna's voice came through the CUM system. I need you to come to my lab now. I think I found something. Sujin arrived to find Yuna surrounded by holographic blueprints, medical formulas, star charts, technology that looked 1,000,000 years more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. The architects left us an inheritance, Yuna said quickly. Technology, knowledge, everything they learned in their billions of years of existence. It has been sitting on Earth's moon the whole time. We have been excavating it for decades. We just did not understand what it was. Can it help us fight the Jevri? Better than that, Yuna pulled up a specific file. Look, cures for diseases the Council thinks are eternal. Energy systems that could power worlds forever. Terraforming technology that could turn dead planets into gardens. The architects left us the keys to changing the galaxy. Sujin stared at the data. Slowly, understanding dawned. We do not need to fight, she said softly. We need to share. Exactly. The galaxy fears us because they think we are dangerous. But what if we prove that we are useful instead? What if we showed them that the children of Kelleron can give, not just take? Sujin felt something shift in her chest. Hope. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt hope. Prepare a transmission, she ordered. Send it to every ship in the Yavari fleet. Send it to the Council. Send it to every species in known space. What should it say? Sujin smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was the smile of someone who had finally found a way forward. Tell them we have a gift, and tell them we are not afraid. The Javari fleet filled the void like a wall of steel and fire. 300 warships, each one bristling with weapons that could tear apart moons. Admiral Torek stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tiny human vessel on his sensors. One ship. One single ship against his entire armada. It was almost insulting. They're not running, his second officer observed. Where would they run to? Torek replied. Their homeworld is weeks away. Their council allies have abandoned them. They have nowhere to go. Then why are they flying toward us? Torek looked at his display. The human ship was indeed moving, not away from the fleet. Directly toward it. They are insane, he muttered. All of them. The death world made them insane. The horizon's edge slid through space like a silver arrow. On the bridge, Commander Sujin Yoon watched the approaching fleet with steady eyes. Transmission ready? She asked. Ready, Minho confirmed. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Send it. The message went out across known space. Every ship in the Yavari fleet received it. Every member of the council heard it. Every species with a receiver saw the data that Dr. Unikong had assembled. It was not a weapon. It was not a threat. It was a gift. Medical formulas that could cure plagues the galaxy had suffered from for thousands of years. Energy systems that could power civilizations without consuming their planets. Terraforming blueprints that could transform dead rocks into living worlds. Agricultural techniques that could feed billions with a fraction of the resources currently used. All of it from the architects. All of it found on Earth's moon. All of it offered freely, without conditions. On the council station, High-Speaker Velos watched the data stream across his screen. His 6 arms trembled. This cannot be real, he whispered. But it was real. His scientists confirmed it within minutes. The technology was genuine. The formulas worked. The blueprints were complete. In one transmission, humanity had offered the galaxy more than any species had offered in 10,000 years. Admiral Adaric received the data on his flagship. His scales shifted through colors of confusion. What is this? He demanded. Technology, Admiral. Architect technology. The humans are giving it to us. It is a trick. It must be a trap. Our analysts say it is genuine. The medical formulas alone could save millions of Javari lives. The energy systems could solve our fuel crisis for generations. Torek stared at the data. His claws tightened on his command chair. Why? He asked. Why would they give this to us? We came here to destroy them. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Ambassador Ginho Park's hologram appeared. He had finally been allowed to leave the council station. Now he stood beside Sujin, facing the Javari fleet. Admiral Torek Jinho said. His voice was broadcast to every ship in the armada. You came here because you fear what we are. You believe we are monsters born from the grave of gods. Perhaps you are right. We do not fully understand ourselves yet. He paused, letting the words sink in. But we know one thing. The architects did not just go to Kelleron to die. They went there to leave something behind. An inheritance for whoever was strong enough to survive that world. We found that inheritance, and now we are sharing it with you. Why? Torek's voice came back harsh and suspicious. Why give away such power? Because that is what humans do. It was Sujin who answered this time. We survived ice ages by huddling together for warmth. We survived plagues by caring for our sick. We survived wars by eventually learning to make peace. Alone, we are fragile. Together, we are unstoppable. She stepped forward, facing the fleet of ships that could destroy her in seconds. You can try to kill us. Others have tried. It never works. We are too stubborn to stay dead. But you can also join us. You can take what we offer and use it to build something better. That is what the architects left us. Not weapons, not power. Hope. Silence stretched across the void. On the council station, species that had been demanding humanity's destruction were now fighting over the technology in the transmission. Medical researchers were weeping with joy at the disease cures. Energy scientists were calling the blueprints miracles. Terraformers were planning expeditions to dead worlds that could finally be brought to life. Velos watched the chaos with something like wonder.
They have changed everything, Mirith observed.
The light being's shell pulsed with soft colors. With one transmission, they have made themselves indispensable. That is what they do, Velos replied quietly. They survive. And then they make others want to survive with them. The council vote was called within the hour. It was not even close. Humanity was granted provisional membership. 12 species voted in favor. None voted against. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Gratitude, curiosity, maybe even hope. Admiral Torek ordered his fleet to stand down. He did not like it. Every instinct in his body screamed that the humans were dangerous, that they should be destroyed before they grew too powerful. But he could not ignore the technology in the transmission. He could not ignore the lives it would save. This is not over, he warned. We will be watching you. Always. We would expect nothing less, Sujin replied. The Javari fleet turned and began its long journey home. The horizon's edge remained in place, tiny silver dot against the vast darkness of space. In the war room, the crew gathered for the first time since the crisis began. They were exhausted. They were confused, but they were alive. What happens now? Nari asked. She was the youngest of them, but her eyes held the same wariness as everyone else. Now we go home, Jinho said. We tell Earth what we learned. We figure out what it means to be children of Kelleron, and we prepare for whatever comes next. Do you think they will accept us? Hajin asked. The council, really accept us, not just tolerate us. Yuna smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was genuine, eventually. Humans are good at being accepted. We make ourselves useful. We make ourselves necessary. Give us 100 years and they will not remember a time without us. Sujin walked to the window. Outside, the stars shone cold and bright and ancient. Our ancestors looked up at those stars and dreamed of reaching them, she said softly. They did not know that they were born on the grave of gods. They did not know that their blood carried the essence of the creators. They just looked up and wondered. She turned back to her crew. That is what makes us human. Not the godessence, not the survival instincts. The wondering, the dreaming, the reaching for things we do not yet understand. The horizon's edge began its journey home. Behind it, the council station hummed with new activity. Species that had been enemies were now talking about collaboration. Researchers who had been rivals were sharing data. The technology from Earth's moon was spreading across known space like seeds carried by wind and across the galaxy. Other species were watching. Species who had hidden in the darkness for millennia. Species who had given up hope long ago. They had heard the name spoken. They knew what it meant. Kelleran had produced children, and those children were not monsters. They were something new, something that had never existed before. The universe had changed. Hi. Speaker Velos stood alone in the empty hall of stars. The delegates had left. The broadcasts had ended. But he remained, staring at the spot where Ginho Park had stood when he spoke the name. Kelleran Velos whispered to himself. The grave of the undying. He thought about the humans. Their strange bodies. Their stranger minds. Their absolute refusal to give up, even when facing impossible odds. Perhaps they were dangerous. Perhaps they would someday grow to powerful, just as the architects had. Perhaps the galaxy had simply traded one set of gods for another. But perhaps not. Perhaps the children of Kelleron would be different. Perhaps they would use their inheritance wisely. Perhaps they would help the galaxy grow instead of consuming it. Velos did not know. He could not know. The future was as dark and mysterious as the space between stars. But for the first time in 3,000 years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt curious. And somewhere far away, on a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star, 8 billion humans looked up at the sky and dreamed of tomorrow. They did not know what they truly were. Not yet. They were only beginning to understand the inheritance they had been given. But they would learn. They would grow. They would reach for the stars that had once belonged to gods, and the universe would never be the same again.